business we need to discuss? Anybody else?
I know I want to recognize, and with the pipe sticking out and whatever else I can come up with it. And the next slide shows the leftover caps that I had cut out for the first two I built. And they were painted black, and the orange noses. I've got everything all cut out. I'm gonna just glue the stick arms. They look like twigs, right? And you just stick them out on the side, glue them on, glue the nose on, paint the mouth on, paint the eyes on. And we'll be doing some funny things with blue eyes and red eyes and all sorts of stuff. And so I'm hoping that the gentleman, Bob, the restaurant manager at Island Bay, likes his. I'm thinking I'm gonna give him Mama and the baby and 3 big guys and keep this big guy for my wife's friend. We'll see how that works out. And Roland, I sure hope that we're there again next year, because I really do wanna walk up to that restaurant and see my product outside.
Okay.
I talked to him on the phone. I've talked to him on the phone twice now. And he is really excited about this. He's still excited about this. So I'm hoping that by the end of August, I'm gonna get this done. Maybe it might be September, we'll see. I would have, if my son had not had passed away, I'd already have these down there to him. So I wanted to give you guys an update on work in progress. I thought you'd appreciate that. Okay, go to the next slide. All right, there's the arms. Okay, I'll be painting those brown. Okay, I just put 2 of them out there. There's an orange nose, and there's a hat. Each of the hats are different. Some are tall and skinny, some are short and fat, some of them are bent up. It's really going to be really kind of cool. Each nose is different. Okay. Oh, I ran out of battery. Each nose is just a little bit different. I haven't made the pipes that I'm going to be sticking out there, but we'll have black, orange, fuzzy balls, and for the coal pieces and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope they're going to be as aesthetically pretty as what we want them to be. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. I had 2 maple trees taken out of my backyard. When we moved to the house 4 years ago, I took one look at all of these roots coming up out of the ground, and I said, oh my, we're gonna have to do something about this. And here it was 4 years later, and I was tripping over them when I was mowing the grass, and I was afraid that the roots were going to go get into the foundation of the house. So I had 2 of them taken out, and the first limb on both of them were about up to here where I am, okay? So this guy here is a little bit over 4 feet long, okay? This is the face side of it. This is the trunk. The Easter Bunny sliced up my two tree trunks for me, and it was really, really cool of them. I really appreciate it. Next slide, please. And this is what's left. I've got 5 slabs that are 2 inches thick here, and I have 9 slabs that are 1 inch thick. And if you look real close, you can see how jiggly and bent up they are. Well, when the Easter Bunny got finished using his saw at the sawmill that he owns, they were nice and flat, but they were wet because I had just cut them down 2 weeks before that. Well, now here it is. It's 4 months, 5 months later, and they're starting to dry out, and they're beginning to warp and be all sorts of different shapes. So it tells me that the water is escaping. But I got the 4 side pieces off, which is what that first board was. So those, I'm going to stick letters on them and make these things where you sit them out on the porch next to your front door that says welcome, and you decorate them. So I got a whole bunch of stuff that I can do really cool craft projects. And then I've got this stuff here, which I'm gonna I'm going to run through the planer and the joiner and measure out and cut up and make frames, picture frames, and whatever else it is that we'll wind up making it out of, okay? So this is next year's wood product, right out of the backyard. Cost me $4,000 for that stack of wood there, fellas. Okay, all right, next slide, please. This is my veneer project. Roland, you have talked to us no less than 2 times about doing veneer projects. These guys here, I didn't have time to get into my project up at Mark Adams, but I wanted to show them to you. Guys, I had no idea I could do pretty stuff like this. None. Until I went up to Mark Adams and part 2 of that first week was the veneer project. And I've got all these guys at home, and he's got forms, and you use your X-Acto knife, and you just cut out a parallelogram, and you cut out a rectangle, and you cut out a triangle, okay? And he's got all of the different colors wood. He's got dark wood, light wood, brown wood, red wood, green wood, and you just make whatever you want. And I wish I would have had time. I wish I was totally artistic. I would have made some of the coolest stuff in the world, but I had put this table together, and I was already working 12-hour days, and it was just too much. But I wanted to show you this in addition to this, okay? So next slide, please. And there, oh, that's the Easter Bunny. He's sawing up my tree. How did that get in there? My goodness, okay. Well, I'm glad he's hidden, so I don't think he wants you guys to know who he is. All right, next slide.
I think that's it.
Is that it? Okay, turn the lights back on, please, over there. Okay, I spent 2 weeks, 2 one-week classes in Franklin, Indiana, at a Mark Adams school, and the first week was basic woodworking. And we did a little bit of, just a real little bit of dovetailing and a couple other things, but then he gave us 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, 4, all right, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, he gave us 13 pieces of wood, okay? And they were all about this, about like that, okay? And we did everything in the world that a professional woodworker does to make the tabletop. We joined it, and before we rounded it, we put clamps on it and glued it, okay? And it was a nice piece of wood. And then when the next day we took the pencil, you just take a pencil, got a pencil there, what you do? You just take a pencil and you hold it in your hand and you move it and you come down to the very edge, right? And then you come over here and you do it again, and that way you know I need to take this much off of the side. Then you do this on all 4 sides, you flip it over and you do it again. Then we took this big heavy rasp. I mean, it was a honker of a rasp. And we just did that until we rounded it all off, okay? And then we sanded it, okay? I'll pass it around. If you guys want to take a look at this, you can, okay? And that was the top. We had 5 days up there, and if you've ever been up there, he makes sure that you get a chance to do everything that needs to get done. The problem is that it ain't an 8-hour day, it's a 12-hour day. So we got this part of it finished, and then we took a piece of wood and a piece of wood, okay? And we angle cut it, and we angle cut it. One's 30 degrees, the other's 45, I believe. All right, and we splined it. There's a spline, okay? And then we shaped it, we drew out the shape, and then we used a bandsaw. This piece here, the offcut, you can see the bandsaw cut on it, okay? And we did that to all four of them. So I had four guys here, we cut these guys off, and then we shaped this piece out of here, and we glued this on to that, and this onto that, and we did that 4 times. Put a spline in there. You can see the spline on the top and the bottom. Okay, and we got it all set up, got it all dried, glued, and what have you. And then the last piece is this 2x2, and he set up the real thick. What do you call it? The blades, the real thick blades on a table saw. Okay, dado blade. Thank you. And we cut a big hole in it. Okay. Oh, I'm on tape. Okay. We just cut a big slice down it on all 4 sides. Okay. And then we took the matching, and you can see this when I pass this around if you want to take a look at it. We used the same setup on the table saw. We just moved it down a little bit so that we could get this side of it and then this side of all 4 pieces. So it magically fits absolutely perfectly. And it was really a cool project on doing this. You can see the splines that I have in here, okay? There's the splines in there, okay? So we did all of that, and then we glued, and let's see, which way does this go? We used the cutoffs so that we could put it in here like this and use a clamp across it from the top all the way across, and then on the bottom all the way across, all the way, and then in the middle, so that we could push the these 2 sides together and have it get glued into the center strut. Okay. Then when that dried, we did the other 2 sides. Okay. And now we got something that looks like this. So then we started sanding like there was no tomorrow. This is 120, and he recommended that I still sanded a little bit to 150 and call that good enough. Okay. So this project, we bounced back and forth from doing this to the veneer work and back again all day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was when we finally got the whole thing finished and put together. The last thing we did was he called us in and he said, okay, there's 3 ways that you can put this together. He set the tabletop on there. He said you can sit it on there square. So if you put it on there square, you can just set it there, and it looks really cool. But if you don't like that, you can turn it 45 degrees. Okay, that's cool. Well, what do you want to do that for? Well, if you got a corner that you want to put it in, a 90-degree corner of the room, you can get by offsetting at 45 degrees, you can actually get your table to fit both sides of the wall by doing that. Okay, that's kind of cool, right? All right, so then he said, the other way you can do it is to do it upside down. But you people don't want to do that. And the reason why is because we spent all this time sanding out the bottom curve. Okay, that's fine, yeah, because this is the way it's supposed to look. Okay? So this is the way, I'll get back to you. This is the way it's supposed to look, okay? Or like this, all right? Because now you got this really cool looking curve down here on the bottom, right? And people can see that, and this is flat, and the flat is going to be underneath the table and you just wood screw it down. Okay, that's cool. But if you want to really be distinct about it, you do it like this. Okay? And nobody's gonna see the curve here because you won't see that. Okay, that's cool. All right, now the reason why I'm explaining all this is because he had a big old work table set up there and you had to set your project down and he had a drill for you and he said, okay, so now drill your holes so that you can use 4 wood screws and attach the tabletop to the frame. Okay, that's fine. So there was 17 of us in this class, 17, I counted us. All right, and all 16 of them, I mean 16 out of the 17, set their project up like this on the table and drilled the hole where it needed to be so that the flat side was on the flat side and it was right. There was one of us that when he set it up, he did this and drilled out the wrong side. And I guess you guys have figured out that one oddball who did it wrong was me. And Mark Adams himself came up to me and said, well, Curtis, you've done this wrong. I said, no, I didn't. And he said, yes, you did. Do you really want this curved part to not be seen like that? I said, no, I mean, I want the curved part on the floor. He said, well, you drilled out the wrong side to do that. I said, oh my, I guess I've done a boner again. Well, how in the world did I do that? So Mark Adams himself went out and got himself a dowel rod, a 1/2-inch dowel rod, walnut, and glue, and a couple of fork clamps, and he sawed off a filler in there for me. And said, well, when you get home, you cut it off and sand it down. So Curtis is the only guy in class whose project has got this really, really cool accent. Okay.
Did he have to give you another Band-Aid?
Yes, he did. I suppose that I could say, hey fellas, look at this really cool accent I put in there and try to trick you guys, but I don't have the guts that it takes to do that. So,
Curtis, Mark has always said there's no mistakes in woodwork, you just change the design.
that's exactly right.
You
Okay.
could sell that for a whole lot because Mark Adams himself worked on it.
Yes, I could, but I'm not. This is my wife's table, and she is really upset with me that I haven't finished this project, but I'm gonna get there. Okay, now, so I had all those snowmen up there that I've been working on, and that's the reason why this isn't finished, because I haven't finished the snowman, and we know why I didn't finish the snowman. So this is next. Now, Bob and I, 5 weeks ago, we went over to Champaign, and I didn't bring the Rubio with it. I bought $100 worth of Rubio product, and I took my cutoff so we could take a look at it. And the gentleman's name is
Brian.
Brian, okay, the guy who owns it. He took 30 minutes, and we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different colors just to see what it would look like to try it. I bought $100 worth of stuff, and when I finish my snowman, this is going to be the next guy I need to do, and I'm going to finish this whole thing. I've got some cherry I think she wants, and she's really waiting for this. She's got the place that she wants it all picked out, and I can't wait to finish this project because this is going to be the prettiest project that I have made in my entire woodworking career, and I'm really looking forward to it. So a couple of meetings from now, I should have this finished, and I'll bring it in for show and tell. But this was the first part in 5 days, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is 40 hours. I probably put 80 hours, no, 60, between 60 and 70 hours in at Mark Adams those 5 days. okay, doing this, doing the table, and doing the veneer project. And some of you guys have come up and looked at it. You saw the slide. I was actually able to just assemble a total of 8 of these. You didn't get a chance to look at that there. I actually did 8 of these guys, and I probably only had room for 2 more. But I ran out of time to get the other 2 in. And you assemble these here with a blue painter's tape. You just glue, you tape each individual piece together, and you just make something. And these guys were just basic designs, just simply to give me something to work on, just to practice and learn. Okay, there really wasn't any rhyme or reason for it. But there's larger. This is, you got to. When I pass it around, you'll see it. This guy here is a parallelogram, and it looks like a square. It tricks the eye. This is what is so cool about this artwork. This guy here is a regular square. You can't get by with that, okay? These guys here are isosceles triangles, okay? And then these guys here are some more of these parallelograms. But you just pick your colors, and the veneer is, I think, a 32nd of an inch thick, and you use your X-Acto knife, and he has the forms for you, the angle forms, and you just set the veneer down on it, and you take your X-Acto knife and you just cut out a piece. Thank you. And you just get them all together and your colors, and you get enough of each piece, and then you assemble it to whatever it is that you want. So this piece here had just blue tape all over it, and you set the non-blue tape side down onto the board, and you take your X-Acto knife and you cut it out all the way around it with your X-Acto knife, all the way around it, okay? And then you pick up your piece, and then you pick up the piece that you cut out. Then you put the finished piece back into the hole, all right? And then you tape it down so it doesn't move. And you do that with your whole design. Then he has got this super big vacuum table. It is twice the size of that one table. You got to put 2 of those tables together, and all 17 of us had our project down there, and he folded the plastic zip-up container over, and put his air compressor thing on it, sucked all the air out of it, and got it to vacuum it so that it was totally flush. And we let it dry, and then the next day we came along and we peeled off all of the blue tape, and this is what's left. And even before we started that, there's a 1/4 inch piece of whatever this is, and he had us put a bottom on it, using the same amount of glue and what have you that we did with this one. So we put I used a light blue and a darker blue, and then I put my guys on this side. I probably could have put it on this side, but it really didn't make any difference. This is the finished product, and it's a practice piece, it's a starting piece, but I'll tell you, I learned enough about veneering to know that one of these days I'm going to do something like it. He had that 12-point nautical clock or 16-point nautical clock out there, if you've ever seen one of those, with large triangles and points on it. It looks like a compass. It was really, really cool. I would have loved to have had 3 or 4 days to have made that. And I think one of the 2 classes I'm going to take next year is going to be a veneer class. We'll see how that works out next year. But those were the 2 projects that I worked on. It took a whole week for this table and that veneer project for me to get a chance to finish that. okay? All right, yes,
Curtis, since your top is going to expand and contract with humidity, and you're screwing it on, did you allow for how you're going to screw it on so that it can move?
yes. I specifically asked this question. Should I put a glue line down on this? And they said no. So, it is gonna be finished with Rubio, and I don't know how much that's gonna have to, how much that's going to affect, expansion and contraction. But there's four screw holes in there. And,
So, one solution is, rather than just use a screw hole, is to use a wiggle hole. When you put your screwdriver, your bit in, wiggle it back and forth,
okay,
and then that gives you room for it to contract and move with the screw, rather than through a single hole where it would just be holding it tight at that spot.
okay, yeah. I'll consider that when I get it put together. I am going to, finish each of the two pieces, in its entirety, in their entirety, before I screw the top down to the frame. So that I will do. And I see Norm is looking at the bottom piece. One of the things that he had us do, he has this perfectly flat table. And the perfectly flat table has got sandpaper glued to it, right? So he had us set it down on the perfectly flat table and sand it so that these are absolutely level, okay? And when I got home, my wife wasn't home, and I took it upstairs and I set it down on our kitchen counter. And by God, our kitchen counter is flat, and it's perfect because this thing did not wiggle at all. And I was really impressed with the fact that it is absolutely level, okay? So,
Curtis, when you finished at the level of the table, did you put a level on the top?
yes, I did. I've got a
Okay.
photograph. As a matter of fact, I have a photograph on my phone of this thing sitting on my wife's kitchen counter with a level on it, and the level is absolutely perfect. Yeah, I didn't put that one in there. I only had room for about 7 photos, but
I
yes.
take it you installed the kitchen countertop?
No, that was there when I bought the house. Okay, all right. Now, should we move on, or you guys got other questions? Okay.
What was the name of the class?
This was called Basic Woodworking. Okay, it's right up there in the elementary level, right there with Joinery 1. Okay, last year I took Joinery 1 and Joinery 2. I probably should not have taken Joinery 2, but I did need to start with how do you use a hammer and chisels. Okay, that was what I started with, and then I went to Basic Woodworking. Okay, so 2 weeks later, this was the last day of, I think I came home on April Fool's Day, if I remember right. A week later, I go back up there, and this one, after talking to Bob and Frank Raymond, what should I take this year? Instead of taking a jig class, which he had, and a couple other choices, I took the hand tools class with Stephen Proctor. If you've ever been up there, he uses a lot of dirty words, and it really breaks up class, but we won't talk too much about that. And they, like everything else up there, he gives you a list. You have to bring this, that, something else, da-da-da, the tools, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I go out, and the biggest thing, there were two tools I had to bring. One is this thing here. This, fellas, is a lethal weapon, okay? It's called a number 7 jointer planer. And this thing, which I had never heard of, it is a flat spoke shave, okay? I've still got him in the box too. All right, these were the two tools that we used. during this week-long class. And there were 17 of us in that class. I counted heads. And on Monday morning, about 9 o'clock, when right after orientation and what have you, we went in the classroom and he said, "Okay, everybody get out your number 7 planers." Now, I had gotten this in UPS delivery from Rockler or whoever I got it from about 2 weeks before I left for class, 3 weeks before I left for class. And I didn't, when I got it, I did not even take it out of the sleeve, fellas. Oddly enough, for $300, I spent $300 for this thing, and I just left it in the sleeve. So that Monday morning, I'm looking around the classroom, and here are no less than 8 guys doing exactly what I just did. Opening up a number 7 jointer plane in the box, first things first, without even having done anything to it or looked to see what it was. They literally took it out of the box on Monday morning. Literally. Just like I did. Holy cow. So we all had, not all of us, there was a couple other brands in there and what have you. But this thing was nowhere near like what it is now. The pieces were taken apart as they were brand new, okay, and all of this. And the first day and a half of class was spent putting this thing into usable, into making it a usable tool. It took us a day and a half to tune this right out of the box, right out of the factory, okay? And we took all of these pieces apart. We shaved them down. We took that metal stuff, a liquid metal stuff, that when you want to mate 2 pieces of metal together, you spread it out, and you take your 2 pieces of metal, and you go like this, and it takes all of the burrs off and perfectly marries 2 individual pieces of wood, individual pieces of metal together. They do it with pistons in cars, okay, to make sure that there's no gas leak in the piston firing of your cars. That's what we did to the shank, and I've forgotten what they called all of these pieces here, okay. And we did all of that to 1, 2, 3 different pieces. And in addition, I don't have the blade out. This is a dangerous weapon. Leave the blade in so you don't ruin the blade. But we took the blade. The blade is this wide and it's that long. And we took it to the grinding wheel, and he showed us how to grind. I got a real good lesson. This is supposed to be a woodworking class. I got a lesson in metalworking and how to sharpen a blade. And it was really cool because I sharpened the blade, and he took the black magic marker and he put a black line on it, about 1/16 of an inch, and said, "Here, hold it at this degree angle, and hold it and go back and forth over the wheel until the black line disappears." And that's exactly what I did. So then we rounded the corners a little bit, okay? They made a big deal about rounding the corners so that it didn't chip the wood and put a gouge in there. And then the biggest thing we did to this, we had to flatten the platen. And again, he had this huge table sitting there with 80 grit sandpaper, circles of 80 grit sandpaper. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them on this huge table. And here are 4 guys at a time sitting there doing this on that sandpaper. And it took probably about 2 hours of actual work. You can see my, if you look real close, as I pass this around, you can see the sanding marks, okay? But what he wanted us to do was to take the little bit of imperfections, the peaks and the valleys, that from the actual smelting of this, to take those out so that it is perfectly flat, so that when you do put this thing on a piece of wood, there's no gaps from the blade, because the body of the planer is just perfectly flat, so it doesn't go like this. Yes?
Did you stick with 80 grit all the way, or did you go to a higher grit?
No, it was 80 grit, yeah. It was pretty rough stuff. And it was really interesting, because my arm was really getting tired, and I had one small, about the size of a dime, that was still shiny, okay, right about there. And the guy came along, the assistant came along, looked at it and said, "Oh, you gotta stay with it, you gotta get rid of that one." Because I really did want to quit, because my arm was getting tired. So this took, to tune this thing and to get this thing in first class usable shape, it took a day and a half. And then we started on the project, okay? And that project that I did 2 projects. I came home with 3 lethal weapons, one planer, 1 knife, and 1 mallet. And this is the coolest mallet in the world. I mean, I made this, guys. And the cutoffs are rubber banded on, because I wanted you to see exactly how we did this. Everybody got a piece of cherry. And I got this one to take home, because I asked for it, because they deemed it not good enough to use to make one of these things once they got started on it. Okay? We started on it, it was this long. It was this long. And it was about that deep. And it was this thick. Okay? And the first thing we did, once we got this guy cooking, all right, we clamped it down to the workbench, and we just did this. And I probably, this one was not my personal piece. My personal piece is now my mallet, but this was the extra one that they were going to throw in the fire pit, and I grabbed it and said, "No, you're not. I'm taking it home." But this one probably has 1/8 of an inch taken off of it. Okay, all 4 sides look like, all 6 sides look like this. Okay, it was rough hewn sawmill grade cherry. Okay, this, when I pass it around, you'll see it. That is flattened out with one of these, not with a planer or a sander or anything. Okay, we left this one rough so you could see the difference. So we got the one side completely flat, and somewhere along the line we sawed off enough of it to make the handle, and we set that part of it aside. Okay. So we're working with this, and he gets his winding sticks out, and he has a 90-degree guy that he's looking at it to see if there's any dips in there in his winding sticks, and you use your planer, and a couple of times you go up and show it to him. No, you need to do this. Okay, you take it back and do some more, and nope, not yet. Do some more, nope, not yet. Must have taken me 10 times to get my wood to where he was satisfied with it. All right, now you can start doing this side. Okay, so then I turned it this way in the vise, and I started going up and down on this. Okay, then he took his 90-degree guy and hung part of it down here and had part of it sitting here. He ran it down there and looked at it and said, Okay, now you got two sides. Okay, now we're doing okay. So then, when we were ready, he made us cut a rabbet into it. It was this long, okay, and we would eventually cut it in half, right in the middle, okay, and you'll see that when I pass this around, okay. So we put a rabbet here, and we put a matching rabbet here, and we made it half on either one of them. We made it half the width of what this is, okay? And the reason why is, okay, is because the handle's gonna go in it, so the hole, if you want your handle to be perfectly balanced in your mallet, okay, you have to have half of the rabbet here and half the rabbet there, okay? So that was really, really cool. And,
With power tools or with hand tools?
oh, I did it with hand tools, yeah. And I sure am glad, I really, really, truly am glad that I had some experience with my chisel, because I used a regular saw to saw out most of this on either side, okay? But when it came to the sides, okay, I used my chisel and the mallet that I took with me, so that the lines would be absolutely perfect, all right, and it would look a lot nicer, okay. And what was really interesting was the handle, as you can see, is tapered. It's skinny at the bottom and wider at the top, right? This angle is, I forgot how many degrees it was, but we had to account for the fact that it was tapered by, when this thing was still taken apart, and I had the rabbet in there, okay, I had to set this thing in here just a little bit and adjust the rabbet so that the angle of this was going to be perfectly balanced with the finished project, with the finished product. And it was, it took him about 30 minutes to explain to me why that had to be. But when we take the size out of this, we start swinging this guy's a lethal weapon too, because it is perfectly balanced, and if you want to whack something, you're going to have a lot of fun doing that. So, before we at some point, I've forgotten the specifics, we cut this rabbet in here, we're ready to do this, and what he had us do in order to get the other side, okay, because both sides are perfectly flat, right? We took our marking gauge, plain old marking gauge, and we lined it up here on the bottom, and we just marked off another 1/8 of an inch all the way around it, okay? All right, from the bottom, because this piece is perfectly flat. This piece is perfectly perpendicular. So this side may have had 3/8 of an inch here, but just 1/8 of an inch on the others, on the other two ends of it, right? And we took our planer, and we clamped it down, and we went back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, until this side got down to the marked line all the way around on all 4 sides, okay? When you did that, it was perfectly flat with this, all right? So we didn't need a planer. We did the joiner on, most of you guys got a joiner, like a big old machine there, right? Put it through there, and okay, and then you turn it upside down and you put it through your planer, okay? I did the joining, and then I did the planing in one tool. And it was just the coolest thing in the world. I was so proud of that, being able to do that. That was really, really cool. So like I said, I left this side undone so you could see what we were doing. We have a cantilevered rabbet in there that's halfway on either side. I go to the bandsaw, cut it in half, okay, fold it over and on top of itself, just like this. And then I put some Johnson wax all over my finished handle. Johnson's wax all over it, okay? Stick it in there and then glue it. And we got glue squeeze out in the hole, right? We have glue squeeze out coming out the top and the sides and everywhere. All right, so after about 10 minutes, we pull the handle out. And because if you didn't, your handle would get glued in there permanently. Okay, so we let it sit overnight, we clamped it down, the whole shoot and match. And the next day we came in and we drew the arc, and we drew a straight, and then we drew the angle on either side. And we just simply used the bandsaw to cut this piece out, okay? And I saved the cutoffs so that you could actually see what it looked like. I'll leave this one here, and we'll pass this around, the finished product around. You can see what we got. There you go. All right, and if you look real close, you can see the seam, okay? But I saved all the pieces. I really thought it was kind of cool. So you guys pass that around, okay? And yes?
Are your ends cut at 3 degrees?
Whatever they are, I don't know what that angle is, but yeah, that is an angle there, okay? Both ends are at the same angle.
3.5.
3.5, I don't know. That's a little over a half, and that's a little under a quarter, so. So anyway, that is really cool. I had so much fun making that project that second week. It was really, really cool. And so that's I have 2 mallets, thanks. Okay, I'm not gonna use the one you sold me as much as what I'm gonna use that, so. And Frank Raymond was over at my house, and I showed him this, I was telling him this, and he said, Curtis, this is what you do with the head of that. You get yourself a little bucket there, you fill up with mineral oil, and then you drop the head into it, and you soak it in mineral oil for 3 or 4 days. And then you pull it out for a week or a month or whatever it was, and you let it dry. And then it'll be absolutely indestructible at that, you know. I said, well, I don't know. That sounds a little bit more on the dangerous side to me. So I haven't done that yet. But anyway, the other project that we built was just a simple marking knife. And he sold us this looks like an old piece of hacksaw blade, and we used 2 pieces of just real small wood, and we glued them together. We put a little shape in there so that we knew what it was, and we used a router and routed it out, and we angled off the blade, and I sharpened it. We put it in the oven and heat fired it, and put the thing together. And this is a usable marking gauge. Okay, that was the other lethal weapon I came home with. Now, I'm not finished yet.
Hacksaw blade?
It's a plain old hacksaw blade. Any of you guys ever used a spoke shake? A spoke shave?
Yeah.
All right, I had no idea that this product existed. And we only had a day to work with this. And this was brand new, right out of the box. We tuned it up just exactly the same way as what we did with the joiner. And I did not get more than an hour's of practice with this. I had almost as much fun playing around with this and getting to know this as what I did with getting to know this. This is a really cool tool. Just a plain old hand tool. Doesn't look like much, does it? But you can shape stuff with this. And right now, I do not have any idea in my brain as to what kind of project that I can actually use this with. But one of these days, I'm gonna make something really, really cool using this tool. Yeah.
I made a canoe paddle one time, and the instructor demonstrated how you could shape it. And we used the spoke shave on it. It took so much material off the handle that I knew that if I did this stroke one time, this paddle was going to snap in half because he spent so much time demonstrating it. It took so much material off, and it was so skinny, it's like, no. So it was a thing to show, not a thing to use.
So could you use the spoke shave to like shape the curve of your legs?
Yes. A Queen Anne's chair comes to mind, okay?
Like cabriolet.
Yeah, whatever they are, just anything that's got a sharp angle or something that is decorative in nature, like crown molding. Has got a lot of dips and swirls in it and what have you. You can use this thing to do that. So before it's all over, I'm gonna get this guy back out, and I'm gonna have an awful lot of fun creating some really cool artwork with that. So anyway, guys, I don't have anything else to say. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do. I took my little saw up there, and in the second class, when I was doing this, I had to test, when I was cutting out that rabbit, I had to test how good of a sawer I was, how much straightness I could put in my just plain old saw. And the instructor that they had up there, I've forgotten which one is his. His is actually absolutely perfect. If you look at this guy is just one saw blade wide. He said, see, this is how you do this. It was really good. Most of mine are about 2 or 3 saw blades wide because I would wiggle my saw, and he was much better at it. So this guy here is just nothing but practice, trying to learn how to use my saw, my dovetail saw. So that was the other thing I wanted to show you. So anyway, that's 2 weeks in Franklin, Indiana, at Mark Adams School of Woodworking. I appreciate it. I do.
Now, did anybody, the mallet head, it happened in art class, did anybody cut it the wrong way?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I did, I was looking at one of the other guys, and he didn't cut the rabbit the wrong way. What he did was he cut 1/2 of it almost all the way through, so that his was not going to center correctly. And I don't know what he did to correct it, but you know, he was sitting there saying, "Wow, what am I going to do here?" So I didn't feel, at least I didn't make that mistake, you know.
He changed the design, that's how
He changed the design on it, yeah, he sure did. So, yeah, and if you guys want to come up and see Terry Tuttle's handiwork,
Yeah.
these things are just beautiful.
Who said that?
I understand that somebody named Ralph donated a couple of boards so that he could do that project, and I really appreciate that.
That Heckleberry that you gave me, that you said was about ready to go through the trash pile? I think so. Yeah, it's just horrible looking wood.
But it looks.
Yeah, you look at the.
Do what now? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, all right. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say, fellas. All right, so thanks for listening, and I appreciate it. So
Excellent.
Thank you.
I got something real quick, if you could kill a light spot, please. As I was prepping to talk about nail guns at Bob Cox's open shop,
There we go.
I
Thank you.
started visiting some of the different websites for some of the manufacturers out there. And I saw on one particular site, it's the Grex website, there were some interesting videos by Gary Strigler, who's an instructor at Mark Adams. And you can see there the different topics he has. They're like, the videos are like 3 minutes long, 9 minutes long, and they really have some good ideas in those topics there. And so I thought I'd point it out. That this might be a reference to if you're gonna work on cabinet doors or some good ideas to kind of accentuate a little bit. Go ahead, sir.
How do you spell Strigler?
Strigler. And Gary is a consultant for DeWalt, Craig, White River, Breck, Woodmaster, and Tanneroo Software. So he's very well known in the industry. He is a trim carpenter in Northwest Arkansas. He actually publishes to Journal of Light Construction, so he's very well known in the industry. I took one of his classes 5 years ago at Mark Adams, and this guy, man, he has a lot of great ideas. He's very innovative.